Tonight's episode of Board Chitless is sponsored by The Game Steward. The Game Steward is an online game store offering Kickstarter board games out of print and imported games at reasonable prices. It's time to play.
Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of Board Chitless. I'm Lecky, and this week I'm joined by
Tristan.
And Dave.
And this week we've been playing Forbidden Stars.
They're really not allowed, those stars.
Don't go anywhere near those stars, I'm warning you.
What is your obsession with my forbidden stars of mystery?
So Forbidden Stars is based in the Warhammer 40k universe. It's a Fantasy Flight game, and they all won't be doing it any longer.
Which is a shame because it needs expansions.
Yeah.
That's what you say about every single game ever.
Well,
Do you think you'll be able to get the expansions off the black market, though? Do you think, like, Board Game
somebody
Geek
made
will
some
be-
on Board Game Geek. I think they did the Necrons and something else, Imperial Guard maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I think Fantasy Flight will probably just retheme it as well with some of their own.
Hopefully. I think it was based on StarCraft. I don't know because I never played StarCraft, but I think it's based on the StarCraft system.
Okay.
So maybe, I mean, they've obviously used the system before. I don't see why they wouldn't do it again. It's popular.
Should we do the overview where we say
Well, yeah,
players and stuff?
so for
No. No one cares about that.
well, for anybody that's not familiar with Forbidden Stars, it's a area control strategy combat game for 2 to 4 players. Like I said, it's based in the Warhammer 40k universe, so you can play Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, is it?
Yeah.
Crazy cultists. And the objective is really, you've laid out a 3x3 grid.
For a 3-player game, point out.
is
The
it
grid
bigger?
changes depending on how
I
many
see.
players.
So you all place down tiles.
How big's the grid for 4?
3x4, I think.
Yeah. So each tile is...
Like 3 tiles per player sort of thing.
Yeah. So that every player puts down 3 tiles at the beginning in once a piece in turn order. Each tile is split up into about 4 sections. Some are void, so space to the layman, and some are planets that can be controlled. Most of the planets that go down on the game are just neutral, that no one owns, but at the beginning you can just place down a couple of your resources, like Space Marines or Scouts, to claim a couple of them as you see fit, which is quite cool. It's a nice little setup. The setup seemed pretty easy. We whipped through that, but then the learning of the rules took us a little bit longer.
The setup's a big part of the game, isn't it? Like
I think
where you put your home world and stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to delineate.
I think we realised, or I definitely realised that now. I think if we played it again, I'd do that completely different.
Yeah, well, you placed yourself right in the galactic centre, didn't you? You were like the
I
cultural
don't
hub.
think that was intentional though, wasn't it? Didn't
No.
you get boned because you put yours down
and you
then,
flanked it, you both flanked it, and then it was just stuck in the middle then. So
I don't think that was
Yeah.
intentional from anybody's
No.
point of view, to be honest. But
It was the first tile on the table, though, and I held onto my home world. I'm doing air quotes, which is really good in a podcast. I held onto my home world, wink, wink, until my last tile I put down, and then I put most of my resources there, whereas Dave just went gun-ho, and we just kind of...
And the first 2 tiles that you put down is where you're going to be putting the other players' objectives. So it kind of behooves you to save the home worlds tend to be quite powerful, don't they? They've got
Yes.
quite good effects. So it's probably good to put them last, and then at least the other players aren't really going to be interested in them.
there's that, but there's also that if you do put their objectives on your home world, you're building more stuff there to defend it with. So I think that's why I placed mine second.
Yeah.
Because it would have both of your it did have both your objective tokens on it.
Yeah.
Because you're putting down objectives for your enemies to come and claim to try and win the game.
Yeah,
Right? You need 3 objectives to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you put your home world down in one of the first 2 tile placements, then you can sort of buttress it with your own forces and stuff.
Yeah, it's a sort of capture the flag, isn't it? First to 3 tokens wins.
Yeah.
And there's 4 tokens down for each player.
Yeah.
Right.
There'll probably be more in a 4-player game. In a 3-player game, there's 4 tokens, and you're going to choose 3 of them to go after.
And they're spread out throughout the galaxy, and you've just got to basically juggle where you're going to go. And you can also start all over the place, can't you? So
Yeah.
I could have some of my forces on the tile number 1 out of 9 and some of them on tile 9, as far away as possible. I'm not sure if that's the cleverest thing to do, but it is one of the things that you can do. So you don't all start on the edges and work your way towards like
Yeah.
grand melee in the center like you do in Eclipse or whatever. It's just it's like
war.
disparate battles all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of skirmishing. I suppose you could try and have a crafty leap the first objective from the other side of the map. If
Well, that's what I did,
Yeah.
didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the only good thing I did. The other thing I did was die.
You did lots of good things.
There's
It just
a lot of
didn't all
design
pan
involved.
out exactly
Yeah.
as planned.
Well, there was you put a lot of faith in galactic bombardment, didn't you? So
I had no other option because all my ground troops were dead.
You were at Eldar, weren't you?
I was at Eldar, who look like they have got quite good ships anyway. But I had to put all my eggs in that basket because all my troops were dead.
yeah, so you have like land-based troops, like so. There's scouts, the Space Marines, and then a sort of an armored tank sort of level
A
division.
land raider.
A land raider. But they all change depending on what faction you are. To like, so it'd be a similar sort of unit with similar abilities.
They have different stats. though.
Yeah, and then you get like big Titan robots and like and massive
Dreadnought-type ships and
dreadnought
stuff.
ships. Yeah, and then it's the spaceships that are the other side of the combat and the movement. So they just move around the voids. They can't attack the planets directly, but they can bombard them. So the combat works separately. It just adds quite a lot of variation to the combat. So you don't really know if another player is moving a ship into a sector in order to bring more land units to you, or if they're just going to drop bombs.
Yeah.
So it just keeps you guessing, really.
And each faction has about 8 different units that you can buy.
So many
and
units.
They're all different between the different factions and everything. So
Yeah.
in terms of the asymmetry and what's available, there is a lot of variation built in from the ground up.
And they've all got completely different stats.
And
pretty
they'll have
much.
a unique special ability as well, like
Yeah.
that's unique to that particular
And,
species.
and you can change it. Like you can play the same faction twice, I think, and go for different units because you're going to be building your combat deck around the units that you want to field. So
That's it, because you can level up so you have a deck of cards for the combat, and you can level up individual cards from that, can't you? Or
Yeah.
like
Like
set
a
to
deck
2
builder.
each time. Yeah.
in a way, yeah.
So you sort of and when you go into combat, you draw a hand of 5 from your deck of 10. But yeah, the more you upgrade it, the more kick-ass you're going to be in that combat. And
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
you don't always see all your units. Like, so
Yeah.
if you play the game 2 or 3 times in a row, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to build some of the units that you built in a previous game. Or
Well, that's it. I only built Aspect Warriors and Wraithguard. That's all I built.
Wraithguard, were they the ships?
No, the Wraithguard were like the equivalent of Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. They're like mini dreadnoughts in 40k.
Yeah.
They're like they've got like the souls of dead warriors in them, but irrelevant, isn't it?
Not irrelevant. You're a big fan of the theme,
Because
aren't you,
they're
Dave?
all dead now. They're all dead, Dave.
Tell us about the theme, the Warhammer theme, Dave, because I know you're a fan.
Oh, it's pretty good, isn't it? It's the 41st millennium, so quite a long way in the future. And in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And we saw a bit of that tonight. There was only war. It was and that's what the game is. It's just fighting constantly.
Yeah.
Anyone listening is going to know this property. It's Games Workshop's big.
Yeah, it's
Sci-fi
massive.
world.
It's huge.
It's
They've
like
got
their
Space
version of
Marines
Star Wars.
with massive shoulders and tiny heads and massive
It's,
guns.
it's all armor. It's all armor. It's all just robot
It's all-
people.
yeah. And the guns fire like miniature rockets. Those bolt guns, they're firing like miniature rockets. Basically, they're on a crusade. The humans in it are the bad guys, if you like.
Humans are.
Kind of. The
Yeah,
Space
they're
Marines,
evil.
yeah, they kind of are. They've taken over pretty much the whole galaxy.
I was playing the Chaos Space Marines. And
Well,
I was
they're
distinctly under the impression that I was the bad guy.
They're the bad guys. But then if you do delve into the lore, I mean, the Chaos is evil. Like, because they don't want to tell little kids.
Chaotic evil.
They don't want to say to little kids, there is ambiguity. They're evil. But there is ambiguity. If you go into it, like you can see a lot of the Chaos Space Marines just didn't want to follow the Emperor.
Yeah.
And became like raiders and pirates and stuff because they're massive. They're on steroids, or like the equivalent of space steroids.
Would you say the Space Marines is like a fascist regime?
The Emperor, yeah, they're really xenophobic. They hate the alien and they burn the heretic. So any alien, even the Eldar, who were like space elves, and everyone loves space elves, except for Space Marines. They they hate everybody. So there was this massive crusade in like the 31st millennium, and they took pretty much all the galaxy. And then half the Space Marines left, got corrupted by chaos, and the Imperium of Man began to crumble, and now it's very decadent, and it's a lot like the Fall of Rome, with the aliens as the barbarians. I don't know if it's based on that. Probably is.
How would you say that the theme comes through in the game?
Well, there was quite a lot of fighting. So yeah.
It's a lot of evocative art, isn't there? It's very difficult for me playing as a Space Marines. It was difficult to forget that I was playing as a Space Marines. All the units were like based around being tanks or Space Marines or Scouts.
Yeah, you were upgrading your guys all the time. Your special ability was to like turn your regular troops into Space Marines.
Yeah, I got really cheap sort of mid-level units, so I could upgrade my lower level units really cheaply with like one material, which is the sort of resource, isn't it, in the game? So instead of money, you just pay material, pay for material, pull a certain unit out, and it did really well at quite early game. It was quite strong. And then I started to fall off towards the later game, as I kind of anticipated, because I wasn't building enough cities to keep my tech up.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think the reason you fell off was a few misplayed actions in your own admission. Yeah. So let's talk about the action system. So basically, you're choosing from 4 different actions that you can do each round, but you can do up to 4 of those actions twice each if you want. You're playing them down like a sort of a hidden, like not a blind bid. You're playing face down on the table in the sector that you want to affect. So like if you want to move into it, or if you want to take its resources, or do like upgrade your tech and stuff. So you're placing them down, and then other people place theirs down as well. You take it in turns to put 4 tokens down. But you can the crucial thing is you can place them on top of each other's tokens, and then they trigger in reverse order, right? So you could this is the key bit of the game. You have to juggle this perfectly, otherwise you can screw yourself over. So you have to, for example, if you're going to attack and build and get resources to build, then you have to put the attack token down first. You have to put the build token on top of that, and then you put the resources token on that. So they trigger in reverse order. So you'd get the resources, then you'd build the thing, and then you go and attack with it. Yeah. But other people can put their tokens down on that stack as well. So it could be you get the resources, then Dave destroys your base, and then you flip the build action, you've got no base to build with, and then Lecky comes in from the other side, and then you flip your attack action, there's nothing left to attack with. So you can screw each other over beautifully, but you don't know what other people are playing down, so they might be bluffing you out with a strategy action, which buffs their tech. They could be coming in for an attack or an orbital strike. There's a lot to consider, even though there's only 4 actions. The order you play the moves, the actions, and when you play them and how you play them is crucial. It's the whole game.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And it was just for me, for a first game, wasn't like there was too much to take on board, but with the various mechanics going on for how combat works and how you bring units into the game and then how you move your units around, I just found myself making loads of really sort of entry-level mistakes, which I kept repeating them. So over 3 turns, I just almost iced myself out of it. At one point, I spent about 2 turns in a corner, first because I didn't quite time the movement right, and the second time because I forgot to build a spaceship in order to act as a space bridge to get my Marines over to where I wanted them. And it was just really, really annoying. No one else to blame but myself. But all I can put it down to really is just fatigue with trying to keep on top of everything and then just letting slip. It's easily done. You put down 1 token before you put down the second token, and all of a sudden you've kind of broken your turn, because if you want to move Space Marines and you're relying on deploying the Space Marines first and you've swapped them around, you're going nowhere. And I did carry that frustration on for a little bit longer than I should have done, probably. But it was just, it's so frustrating. And then because of that frustration, that spilled over into when I had a combat and I didn't quite know what I was doing with one or two of the cards. And then that frustration spilled over when all the chaos storms moved around. So they're called chaos storms, warp storms. Yeah. So you get, there's a couple of barriers in the map that move around at the end of each turn based on what tactics cards you draw. So there's just some arrows. And
there's one per player, isn't there?
One per
each person
player
gets to move one of these warp storms in a random
turn
direction.
Order, yeah. So you can move them up and down, or left and right, up and down, or some of them will move orientation to be horizontal instead of vertical.
And they completely block that tile off, don't they?
Yes, they can do.
There are abilities, I think, that let you bypass them. I think Chaos have got some upgraded orders that just let them slip past.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like your was it the dominate action allowed you to
I could chuck
reposition.
Chaos Space Marines through, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the sort of low-level infantry could nip through. them,
Cultists.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cultists, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that'll let you get around it, and good planning might help you to avoid that as well. But with just all these things going on at once, I found it was quite easy to either lose your strategy or to just kind of get blindsided. And it's not a very reactionary game. So if you do find out that the next turn you're kind of hemmed in, you do have to just sit it out unless you're lucky enough to have a factory outside of the warp storms, or a city or something, or you've got enough resources out there, like enough marines or spaceships to move around and do something else in the meantime. You can find that you're going to have quite a difficult turn or two until the warp storms kind of move around again.
There is once you played those 4 actions down, you watch it unfold. You know, you're not responding, so it's not like you play an action and then I respond to it.
Yeah.
You have to anticipate what your opponent's going to do, and you have to sort of respond to it in advance, kind of thing. And then, so there's eight rounds that you'll be doing this over, and once a round started, it's like an unstoppable force at that point. You're just watching everybody flip their actions, and you just got to hope your plan, isn't met with too many obstacles. I think you sort of got into a bit of a quagmire in your own ambition. Like,
totally.
A little, like the middle section of the game, I think maybe. Bit.
But
then,
it all got a bit
sort of-
murky and muddy.
Yeah. But then on the other end of the spectrum, Dave, you played it a couple of times. I think you sort of got your head around it a lot more.
I watched a video as well. And I think it.
You certainly weren't hesitating in terms of like your turns and like making the choices and stuff. And I think you were sort of seeing maybe the grander scale strategies on that. And
Yeah, but like you said though, it can just go out the window.
Yeah.
Like, because in the very first turn, it was like a pincer, wasn't it? It was Tristan attacked from one side, Lecky attacked from the other side, wiped out my entire army and homeworlds, like both my homeworlds, the planets on my home tile, and even though I felt like I sort of had a grasp of the system, like that was it. Then that was the sort of the beginning and the end. That's why I turned to piracy.
Well, you had my Space Marines pretty much kicking down your front door, didn't you?
Yeah, with tanks.
Really early on. Yeah.
mine was definitely a special forces nip in, get the objective, and get out
It
of
was
there.
a single Chaos Marine company.
But I never intended to stay and like dominate the home world. It was like a run in and get out.
He killed everyone in there, all the women and children.
Leave no survivors, but but no. So there's these conflicts happening all over the board, as we said. There's objectives all over the place. So it does feel strange in a 3-player game that it can go a bit like that. One person can get. It's not so much king making as like peasant bashing, like whoever's on the lowest rung of the chain.
But it's not. That's one of the things I really like about it. Like in say Eclipse or Game of Thrones or whatever, that pincer movement you guys did, that would have felt really bad. Like I would have been like, "Whoa, come on, guys! You've just like, what's that for?" In this, you had an objective on my craft world.
Yeah.
You had an objective on the other world next to it. That's why, and it was like, well, that's fair enough. I'd have done the same.
What could you have done to defend against that?
I wouldn't have. I would just want to done. I just wouldn't have started in the middle of the board. If it ever happens again, I will put my home world on the outskirts with my troops. I had all my troops in the middle of the board. They were just set up to die. They were just lined up to die, weren't they?
We had we've played this once before, right? With Sam, who's not here tonight, but we had a 3-player game, and it was a war between me and Dave. Like a constant
vicious.
back and forth, vicious war. While Sam just nipped around the map, mopping up his objective, and snuck a win out from underneath us, like without us.
We didn't realise that game.
We didn't realise how far along he was
We
getting.
didn't realise objectives needed to be defended.
Yeah.
Because that's how you win. Even though it says it in the rules, this is how you win. Objectives. we were too busy just trying to fight.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's in essence part of the game, because you have to keep an eye on what everyone else is doing constantly. Because Tristan won this game, and it was due to canny troop placement. So like he was saying, it was like an SAS mission to get that first objective. You just got some in and then got them out again. Whereas I bulldozed your home world and then set up camp there. And I didn't intend to stay. It's just
warp
that
storms.
I couldn't put down the right tokens, and then the warp storms happened.
Those warp storms can screw you over.
They-
They last one turn and they have to move on at the end of the turn.
You get to move them on, so
Yeah.
sometimes you have got control over it. But
Yeah,
it's
sometimes you're defending
wishy-washy,
yourself
isn't it?
with
Yeah.
them. Sometimes you're opening them so that you can attack through them.
But then if you've placed one near you to defend yourself,
Somebody else can use it to.
Oh,
that could
it's
then
gonna hem
be
you
that's
in.
going to be close then, and it could just be back next
Yeah.
turn when you want to move through.
We managed about 5 rounds this game, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I'd say comfortably 2 of those I was kind of trapped. I was blocked off. At one point, I was blocked off from both of you, and then the other time I was cut off from Tristan, who I was eyeing up for my objective.
And just like it was 5 rounds, but I didn't feel like we really got very far. Like
It was actually, it might have felt different, but it was, looking at the clock, it was about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
If that. I mean,
It
we
didn't
had setup as well, which is part
It
of it.
felt a bit swifter than that, and I think it's because of the amount of concentration the game demands. And secondly, I agree with what Dave's saying, because it didn't feel like we did progress very far, because we didn't get too many of our higher level tech cards, did we?
I didn't get anything. I think the highest thing I got out was I got one of the heavier ships out later, but it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something. Again, there's a lot of things to take in, but one of the things is if you buy a high level unit, like I was saving up for a big turn to buy some big hitters, so like my big robot or Hellbrute type badass dudes, and I got them in, but hadn't upgraded my deck. And your deck upgrades are specific to the type of unit that you're building. So if you don't upgrade your deck and your units, you send your units into battle, and all of the special abilities on your cards
You need to.
are pretty much meaningless because they only affect the low level stuff if you haven't upgraded your deck. So that was quite an unusual thing. I did feel like with all the battles, I never knew which way it was going to go, because I'd be like, yeah, I've got 2 Hellbrutes and a Chaos Space Marine, and then they're going into Lecky's factory, and Lecky's factory would repel all 3 of them.
Yeah. But I had a very defensive deck. So my deck was set up for Space Marines and Bastions and a tactic that I kept drawing. So when you what's the name of the action? Sorry, when you get the extra text out.
Strategize.
Strategize. So you strategize, and then you do the action, which is usually buy extra combat cards, and then you put the token on top of your tactics and schemes deck. And then at the end of the round, you get to draw one of those cards and use it. And I drew a tactics card, which was add a free bastion to any one of your friendly worlds for free. So I did that twice. And because my deck was set up for Space Marines, a lot of their defensive buffs also let you use those same buffs for bastions. So when Tristan was attacking one of my planets, and it just had a bastion there and like one set of Space Marines, he just couldn't touch me. Because I kept drawing these combat cards that just kept adding more
Bastion
shields.
just repelled the
Yeah,
Chaos
it was really powerful. But then if I wanted to build that bastion outright from the beginning of the game, it would have cost me about 6 materials. So that's like 4 Space Marines or 3 Space Marines I'm not building during the game. So
it's like knowing the shortcut to
yeah,
get to it. So.
and due to the amount of units that you can actually field on the map and how many planets give you resources above 1, there's not really that much that you can do. You have to really think about what resource you're spending where, especially when everything costs resource.
And I was crippled, like when I lost those 2. Not to keep going on about it, but I was bringing in 1 resource a turn. I couldn't buy anything.
Yeah,
like
no,
it was like, and it I did find. Again, I think it just goes back to placement, but I did find I was like not eliminated, but pretty much I was just being an annoyance. I couldn't do anything. I was just trying to bomb people at that point. I became a terrorist organization of outcast Eldar.
Well, that's it. You became almost ineffective, and then I started to turtle because Tristan was just steamrolling some of my planets after his objective. And foolishly, I was like, well, he's just after the objective, so I'm going to move all my units away and try and get one of mine. But then, by the time I'd done that,
that gave me the game.
Yeah, he picked it up, and then he'd also deployed Space Marines on the other side of the map.
Yeah, to get
that you couldn't stop.
Although to be fair, he could have stopped. I mean,
I tried.
Dave was bombarded. I had a couple of like chancers basically who were right across the map. You took my factory, so I couldn't reinforce them. So there was literally 2 units as far away from my home world as you could possibly get, and you had an armada of specialist ships.
It was bombing them every turn, wasn't it?
They were men on a mission behind enemy lines. It was almost
it was
destined.
Mark Wahlberg in Lone Survivor in Chaos Space Marine form.
Yeah,
but I totally didn't expect that to last. But then when you ran out of,
I reckon another turn. I reckon I'd have nailed that Hellbrute. or whatever it was.
Well,
It was a Chaos Marine.
It was a
Yeah.
Hellbrute and a Space Marine, but a Chaos Space Marine, and the Hellbrute was the big dude, but you took him out.
Yeah.
So I literally had one dude ran into the
I had
final objective.
nothing to defend with, and
No.
it just yeah.
Yeah.
So it is. It's weird how like it sort of slips and slides like the tides of luck and stuff. But those two things happened at exactly the same turn, so I was able to.
Yeah.
take the two objectives at
But then I
once.
think this is one of them games where there's like quite a high skill ceiling. I think it's got that sort of depth, doesn't it? Like the stuff like that, you would learn over time.
Yeah, because you have to juggle everything else as well.
Yeah.
And your objectives were in my home world, so it was only a matter of time before either one or both of you had come for me. And if that had happened, because my resources were spent on outgoing missions,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been turtling enough to sort of defend myself. So
Yeah.
it can, there's a hell of a lot sort of going on and to consider and stuff. But in terms of, you saying there, Dave, you had to become this terrorist organisation. Is there any way you could have come back from that, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Because it was early on, wasn't it? It was the first
it was
couple
very
of rounds
early
when,
on.
when you got that sort of
I
hammering.
felt like I was coming back. I'd finally got a factory set up, and I was sort of getting some more resources in, but I was way behind. And the only thing I had going for me was like 5 frigates, and they were just roaming around shooting what they could, which is all right.
That's what they're for.
Yeah, it caused some problems.
Yeah, had a good time. It's fine. Space piracy. But I think just going back to the theme is really like, it really shines through. Like, I know you guys probably wouldn't have noticed it in the combat cards, but like the Howling Banshee cards and the Striking Scorpions that I was playing, the abilities that they had made sense to what those Aspect Warriors do in the game and what they're all about. So I think they've really sort of nailed the theme, like in every way. Like, there's nothing that I've thought, oh, that's a bit, even like the warp storms and like the way the different orders work, like the Eldar can bomb a planet after attacking it and stuff. No one else can do that.
The card play reminded me a little bit of like the Star Wars LCG. There's a lot of sort of adding up the symbols. You've got guns and morale and
Yeah, do you want to
defense
talk
and
about
stuff.
the combat? Because the combat is like the meat of the game, and
It's the most elegant part of it as well.
I think it's brilliant. The combat.
It's so-
I think
it's so well
I
done.
think the combat could stand maybe with a bit of work as a game on its own. Like, I think it genuinely could. But compared to something like something like Eclipse, where it's just you just roll a handful of dice. I mean, I know that's quick. I mean, and to be fair, the combat can take a while in this, which maybe not so fun for the player watching. But then I enjoyed watching you guys go at it on the one occasion that you did.
It was good.
Hey, it took 2 attempts to take that factory.
It was good. It was good to see him, celebrate victory vicariously through one of us two. I really did enjoy the combat. The cards work brilliantly. There's some dice rolling, but it never feels like the dice rolling is unfair because it's always boosted by the cards that you've
Dice
chosen
rolling
and
sort of gives
built your
you
deck.
like, it sort of almost, it gives you a strategy to go for, doesn't it? You use your cards deterministically to then shore up your weaknesses in the dice or exploit what the opponent's not got on the dice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like if you're going to be aggressive or defensive.
Yeah.
I noticed that my cards worked really well in both situations. So when I was attacking your homeworld, then they were really buffing the amount of guns that I had and helping to like break through your defenses. But then when Tristan was coming at me, it was all of a sudden it was like defensive. And they weren't very, like, it didn't feel like I was really using a like different strategy. It's just you're just throwing down like a tableau. Every round you put down an extra card. Combat only lasts for about 3 rounds until it's then determined by who's got the most morale, and that will decide who won and who
usually the
withdraws.
Space Marines.
Yeah,
Seems to be
yeah.
which is fair enough.
But then it depends how many like Space Hulks or whatever you field out. You had like Tristan had 11 morale at one point, from about three action from 3 figures, so it did pretty well. But I think it was the easiest part of the game for me to learn, and we picked it up in about a round or 2, and it was just a lot of fun. And then you had the schemes as well to fall back on. So there's a lot of sacrificial cards where you bring a scheme in so it can hold on to it. And I think I had one where it was add 3 shields, and then every time you've got a forge token, I'd throw another shield.
Just nothing
in.
could touch you, could it?
No, it was brilliant. It was needed just in that time as well. So yeah, I can I can talk about how awesome the combat is all day long. It's just I wish like the movement mechanics, and I think I would have preferred more of a sort of a clip system.
Straightforward. Like,
Yeah, straightforward. I have a turn, I move some units, you have a turn, you might move some, and then they start fighting, or we start upgrading tech or whatever.
But do you not feel like, I feel like there's all sorts of depths to the even the mechanic, like I was putting down tokens to bluff, didn't work because it was a strategized token and who needs that. But at least I went on my event deck, I was putting it down to bluff Tristan to think I was advancing into a certain area and stuff. There's like
trying to
layers.
force play.
Didn't work. But
Yeah.
I'm immune to bluffing
because I'm rubbish.
I was so confused.
I can see why it was set up like that. And it's probably a really good system.
I think for 3 players who are new, fumbling around, it's a bit, like a bit, you know what I mean? But I think for 3 players who were like good at it, I think it would be like a proper duel.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's one of them, I think.
There's a lot of meat
But then
there,
there's
isn't
so
there?
much out there. Who has time to sort of really get into one game other than chess masters?
Yeah, it sort of has to have the appeal where you'd want to come back to it again and again. And I think, like you said, Dave, there's probably a really high skill ceiling where the more you play it, the more strategies and things you can discover. I would say, for me, it felt like an interpretation or a re-implementation of the Game of Thrones board game, which, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know which came first.
It was Game of Thrones, but I think Game of Thrones came after StarCraft, but then I think they're all sort of based on.
And, and Game of Thrones has a static map, so that's fixed every single time.
Yeah.
But for me, experience-wise, I definitely preferred Game of Thrones, just because
I preferred this to Game of Thrones. It didn't feel as gamey. Like I think sometimes
Throny.
I think sometimes games of Game of Thrones. With the time we played it, afterwards we were like, oh yeah, but if we had just done this one thing right at the beginning, then the Lannisters wouldn't have won. I mean, it was almost like a foregone conclusion a couple of turns in, because we hadn't done enough to negate their starting position. Whereas this felt like it was just a straight off scrum. He's open to anybody.
It's just a scrap. Like it's just a space scrap.
Yeah, you throw in minis at each other. Or flags. And they're transient as hell. One turn you could lose 5 units, and the next turn you produce 6. And they just they come and go like nothing.
I never felt like I was winning or losing because it was shifting around so much.
I never really knew what was happening
until we handed you the game. I think I don't know what your opinion is, but I feel like when I played Netrunner, that had such a steep learning curve on it, and the people that I played against quite a lot were so into the meta of the game that you almost never felt like you had a chance. It was like going around to your mate's house and they were like, oh, let's play FIFA. And they play FIFA football all day, every day, and you don't. So you just have to sit there and enjoy getting absolutely battered for 40 minutes before you decide you're going to go to the pub. Whereas with Forbidden Stars, I think luckily we're all on a similar sort of level of it. Like we don't know the game. Yeah.
All terrible.
Exactly. We don't know the game so well that we don't know all the basically all the most efficient sort of strategies. So we don't know that if we just go in Space Marine straight away with certain cards in the combat deck, then you can have a really good early game advantage. For example, I don't know if that's true or not, but then if we were to play against someone that was 10 games deep, would they just steamroller us immediately because they knew the most efficient combos, best way to go about the objectives, where some of the weaknesses are, and I feel like this could be a bit frustrating.
But a lot of it's build order. Like I bet a lot of it is like build order. Like, do you rush tech? Probably. I probably would rush tech if I was Eldar again. I don't know about the other factions. I've only played Eldar.
Spam for Space
Been battered
Marines.
Absolutely reamed twice as the Eldar.
I don't
Might
know.
play Orcs next time.
I don't know why you wouldn't ever play Space Marines in this game because they're just so cheap.
When you took it, you had first choice and took them.
Smashed it, and just do not regret it because it was.
I think you played them last time, didn't you? You played the Space Marines last time.
It sounds like that would have been my first choice if you hadn't chosen them, I think.
Yeah.
But I quite like playing as the Chaos dudes.
Yeah. They were sneaky. They were so sneaky.
Like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
They're just popping up everywhere, weren't they?
Popping up behind those warp storms. Caning us. Yeah. So would you come back to this game, Tristan?
I enjoyed it, but I don't think, for me, I wouldn't choose it over like similar games like Eclipse or Game of Thrones. I'd be happy to give it another go, but like with the amount of choice that we've got, it would be it wouldn't be one that I rush to. But
it's a big investment. It's a long game.
It's a long. Well, it's it's not that long.
That was only
It's-
halfway. Like if we were all good and you just didn't.
Yeah.
If you didn't hand me the game.
Yeah.
I think if we didn't gang up on
It was pure skill.
yeah,
That could have gone double the time, couldn't it? Because we're only halfway through.
that game could have easily gone where instead of we both going after the objectives on Dave's side of the board, if I'd bum rushed you and you'd rushed Dave, he might have gone in for me, and it could have been a never-ending cycle all the way up until 9 rounds. Yeah. So it did feel like it was almost like an artificially shorter game, just because of bad decisions or bad play from new players. But I feel like there's definitely a lot of replayability in this, and I think I could easily play it again. I wouldn't regret coming back to it at all, and I think it'd offer up quite a bit.
I think I'd like to play 4-player. I think I'd like to play 2-player. I think 2-player might.
I think
4-player could be good because then you're less at risk of
And
getting.
there's a bigger space, isn't there?
Yeah.
there's more to explore, and you're less at risk of getting boned by.
But then that
two.
is going to go quite long, isn't it?
It will go long,
Yeah.
but it'll probably feel like a lot more of a fairer game. Just because there's more, there'll be more to and fro, won't there? Everyone will be concentrating on more stuff.
I'd play this anytime. I didn't have a brilliant time tonight. I got levered at the beginning, but then it was quite fun just going around with the ships. But I think for me, I'd play it sort of whenever, anytime. I think there's so much in the box, like just delving into all the different cards and mechanics. Like there's so much there.
Yeah, it's a massive box.
I didn't even scratch the Eldar surface because all I got out was the Aspect Warriors and the Wraith card. That was it. And there's loads of units there. But then how do the Orcs play? How do the Space Marines play? That looked pretty cool. What Tristan was doing, I'd like to have a look at that. There's just loads in there, and it's a shame they couldn't get any expansions out for it because
before they got shut down by the behemoth of Games Workshop.
Because it's like it feels like it's, and you know me, like I love asymmetry in games. Anything that's asymmetrical, just give it to me. There's loads of fun, just hours of fun in just sort of discovering all the little mini mechanics for each faction. So they could have released like race packs and stuff, and that would have been enough. They didn't need to add anything else to expand it. Maybe more map tiles.
What did you think of the map tiles? It's got this weird sort of archaic look, haven't they? Like like you're looking at a tapestry or something rather than
Gothic.
like
It's got Gothic in it,
Yeah.
rather than a sort of digital representation of different planets.
But again, that kind of falls in the theme. Like a lot of my spaceships were just flying cathedrals.
Yeah.
So it's if it's like the Human Imperium or
Yeah, the Imperium of Man.
that's it.
Yeah.
So
A bit sexist. Well, they are very sexist and racist and all the otherists.
reason enough to play as Chaos Space Marines and kick their arse.
Well, they are 8 feet tall. So,
What the Space Marines are?
yeah.
Is that because of their heels?
It's because of the genes and the stuff that they pump full of.
Not the denim kind.
Not the denim kind.
yeah, they brought them back into Silver Tower now, haven't they, or something or other?
Oh, yeah.
They got rid of them and
that's
brought them
medieval.
back again.
Yeah, they
the
look
Warhammer
like...
Quest Space Marine.
Yeah,
Knight.
the Age of Sigma.
Paladin.
I don't really know very much about that, but I'm not interested. I mean, I quite like the old Warhammer stuff. The old, the Hero Quest and Warhammer Quest and the Warhammer game, but yeah, I don't really know much about the new one.
Is that the same as the Siege thingy, the Silver Quest thing that you had? Is that?
Silver
Yeah,
Towers,
that's this Age of Sigma thing. You know where there's that big... He looks like a Space Marine, but he's just got a sword, and he's
Paladin type
yeah,
Space Marine.
like 8 feet tall. It's some sort of angel. I think he's got like religious overtones. I don't know.
Well, there you go. Forbidden Stars. It's a frustrating learn, but there's a lot of meat there, and you can certainly a game for a lot of people to enjoy. I'd put it alongside Eclipse as a gamer's game for big, heavy gaming.
Do you know?
I would say it's probably harder to grasp than Eclipse.
Yeah.
There's more.
Yeah.
Like an Eclipse, you can still play through most of the game, whereas in this, if you get the wrong order tokens down in a turn, and I was still doing it on like the 4th or 5th turn,
Yeah.
you can really screw yourself over.
It's unforgiving, isn't it? It doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't recover from poor decisions
It
easily.
feels like it's from even though some of the mechanics are really modern, like that combat system, can't say enough good. Like it's modern. It's like, but the whole game as a whole, kind of feels like it's from 10, 15 years ago. Like it's really sort of a mishmash of
different elements.
Yeah, and it's not really elegant.
The other thing is as well, if we haven't put you off, you need to run out and get it soon because they're not going to be producing Warhammer stuff for long, are they? Fantasy Flight.
They've not. This been out of print for a while.
Oh, it's
Yeah, as far as I know, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, for a
there you
good
go. Check it out on eBay.
Like 12 months.
Good luck finding
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But if you do get a copy, then
You can have this one if you.
throw yourself into a couple of video tutorials and playthroughs beforehand just to get a grasp of
Yeah, you need to hit the ground.
what is going on.
There's a watch it played. It's only like 5 minutes long and it covers it. So little shout out there. Pay me, Rodney.
Link in the description. Sweet then. All right then. Well, let's end on a high. Woo!
Bye.
Bye.